Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. Each episode will bring you in-depth discussion with experts, community leaders, and analysts who will share their insights, experiences, and predictions. From local elections to global diplomacy, we'll provide you with the tools and perspectives you'll need to navigate today's real-world landscape. The views expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, producers, or this podcast. This podcast is an independent production and is not affiliated with, endorsed by, or sponsored by any organization unless explicitly stated.
Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. I'm Lisa Chafee.
I'm Josh Cease.
I'm Michael Nash.
Gentlemen, special edition tonight. There's so much going on with the Supreme Court.
Too much.
The federal Supreme Court. So joining us on the phone from Strictly Speaking Unfiltered, we have Bob Frantz. Sir, how are you?
Greetings. I am wonderful, thanks, although we are baking just a little bit in 98-degree heat and triple-digit humidity and heat indexes. Yeah. Other than trying to stay cool and comfortable, I'm great. Thanks for having me, guys.
I want to read this quote real quick. I just saw it.
I love it.
I read it to Josh a few minutes ago. So in October 1886, October 28th, actually, they had the unveiling ceremony of the Statue of Liberty. And a prominent Republican politician named Chauncey Depew said this, quote, "There is room in America and brotherhood for all who will support our institutions and aid in our development." What do you think of that? What's that make you think, Bob?
Well, it makes me think that if somebody wants to be a part of this great experiment, which is, the republic that was founded, they have to be committed to building it, to growing it, to assisting it, to helping it. They have to be a part of it, not be somebody here to leech off of it and absorb its resources without contributing. If you've got something to contribute, it sounded like a very early wording of what we might call the merit system.
Well, basically, also
offer, that's what we have. That's what we need, I should say.
Sorry, he puts a qualifier on the end of that. That was just the first part. This is the brilliance of where this quote is, and you nailed it, Bob. So, Lisa, go ahead and read the rest of it.
So the last part is, "But those who come to disturb our peace and dethrone our laws are aliens and enemies forever." Unquote.
Boom. That's exactly what I was hinting at. Yeah, I didn't hear that. I didn't know about that last part, but that's exactly correct. And that was what year?
1886.
1886, and here we are in 2026, and it has never been more true. We have welcomed people and will continue to be a part of this, this melting pot or whatever it is that you want to call it, provided you are here to contribute to this country, not to take from it and not to cause problems for it. And that's not a matter of race, and that's not a matter of ethnicity. It is simply a matter of desire. What is your desire? Is your desire to contribute and help build a great society? And I don't mean the great society, but to build, what we have here, or is it to take away from it? And that's what it's all about.
Well, so we brought this up because, as you know, Bob, this week, the United States Supreme Court ruled against Trump's executive order on banning birthright citizenship. The main reason, as I understand it, for saying this, for Trump doing this, is to stop the birth tourism that's happening in this country. And for those who don't understand, people will come over from China, from other countries, right when the women are close to giving birth, so they can give birth here, the kid's given citizenship, and then they take the kid and go back to their homeland and raise them there until, and a lot of these countries to hate us, raise us communists, and so when they all grown up, they can come back over here and disrupt us.
Well, I agree 100% with that, Lisa. That is exactly what the fear is, and that's why President Trump was making a move. And I can't even call it a preemptive move because it already started. The birther tourism you're talking about is already going on. The move was to try to stop it or slow it down by saying that only babies born on this soil to people who are under and this is what the Birthright Citizenship Amendment says, who are under the jurisdiction of the United States. And that doesn't mean that they are here and have to follow our laws. It means to actually have fealty, have loyalty to the United States, that this is where they plan to be, plan to live, and pledge allegiance to. And the birther tourism is obviously going on, where what you just described is absolutely happening. Everybody is fixated on the China portion of this because I think that's where the largest number is coming from. But because the Supreme Court ruled the way they did, you can be guaranteed that other nations that are not friendly to, that are either, adversarial in geopolitical ways or openly hostile and threatening, they're going to take advantage of this too. And I'm talking about scores of Arab and Middle Eastern countries that are Muslim countries are going to do the same exact thing. They're going to send their pregnant women over here, 6-7 months pregnant. They're here on a visa, for a tourist visa, or they're here to study, or whatever the case might be. To take a job, they'll get a short-term job, just long enough to have that baby, and then suddenly we've got, again, over time, we're talking collectively millions of individuals, babies who have American citizenship status, which means voting rights. And what else, guys? It means the ability to Zohran Mamdani, to eventually run for office.
That's right.
With a hatred and a deep resentment of the United States, and proceeding to try to tear it down from those positions of power that they can gain by way of their birthright citizenship. And that's what makes this so dangerous.
I'm happy to say that all of our mutual friend for, I think, everybody here, Bernie Moreno, our great senator from Ohio, he said, today he's reintroduced a bill that was written by Harry Reid, of all people, in 1993, which would basically go ahead and it would say that the right to citizenship for anyone born in the U.S. only cannot go to people who are here illegally, undocumented.
Not just undocumented, but even if they're here, like on a tourist
visa. Tourist visa.
A child born in the United States to a mother who is not a lawful resident is not a U.S. citizen.
Right. So he's going to do that. He attached some other stuff to it, like increasing penalties for illegal immigration, reducing the number of immigrants accepted each year, and limit asylum seekers. All things I 1,000% agree on. So he's got that going for it. But even if it were to ever, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere, unfortunately, right now, just in the political climate we're in, and the fact that this is an election year for the Senate, and people are playing politics and petty games and so forth, I don't think it'll go anywhere. And even if it were, I wanted to ask you, how disappointed were you in seeing John Roberts? I'm used to him going flippity flop. I have no idea how he's ever going to rule. But people on the conservative side feel betrayed by Amy Barrett. They feel betrayed by Brett Kavanaugh. But I knew this was going to be difficult simply because of how the 14th Amendment, that specific clause, how it was specifically worded and written. So if you read into their decision, it's not necessarily that they disagree with the idea. It's just that as they interpreted the 14th Amendment as they did, which I thought, as conservatives, do we not interpret the Constitution as it was written? Your thoughts on that? Well, what would you tell conservatives listening to the podcast who are like, man, they're traitors? What happened to these two?
Well, you're right about Roberts. He has been, anything but a consistent originalist or a textualist, which is what I look for in the court. I don't like to use, and I never do use, the terms conservative branch of the court and the liberal wing of the court. I don't like that, because the court is supposed to be non-ideological. They're supposed to be completely interpretive of the text of the Constitution, or the text of the statute, if we're depending whatever the governing issue is in a particular case. So I call them, instead of conservative and liberals, I call them originalists and activists. The originalists are trying to literally interpret the intent of the words that are in the Constitution as they were written, and the activists want to change them, and the activists want to do things completely defying those words, which is of course not in their purview. So to your point, Roberts has always been that way. Amy Coney Barrett was a huge disappointment. And I wrote this on Facebook the moment I heard this, the outcome of this particular one, Birthright Citizenship. She is by far the biggest mistake President Trump has made now in 6 years as president. And he's made some decisions on personnel that have been, bitten him as well in other places in the cabinet and so forth. But no one with a lifetime appointment like this has ever been so disappointing. I sometimes got inspired that Amy Coney Barrett was going to be good. If you look at her vote on the Roe, reversing Roe, but she has been so consistently on the side of the activists of the court rather than the originalists. And your description a moment ago is spot on. Interpret the Constitution as it was written. And clearly it was written by the founders at the time with specifically the children of slaves who have been born in the United States and who are now freed, that they must have citizenship, full citizenship, because they were born here and not be forced to be deported back to the African countries of their ancestors' origin or whatever. That was the intent. Never in a billion years did the founders think to themselves, someday in the future, people are going to be able to hop on a plane 6 hours away, land in the United States, have a baby, and suddenly become Americans. That was never, ever going to be the intent. And I think that's what the interpretive of the text and of the original meanings of the framers, and you know what, Justice Alito and Justice Thomas, they nailed it with in fact, I can read it just super quick because I have all this stuff at the ready.
I thought Samuel Alito's dissent was world class.
Yes, it was. And there's this one line in it that kind of summarizes it. He said, a woman from a country hostile to America comes to the United States to give birth, then returns to a place where the child would be, quote, inculcated with hatred of this country, end quote. Even if he plots to harm this country, he cannot be deprived of his status as a citizen. So you hear things like that, and that underscores the danger. And the idea that Amy Coney Barrett didn't see that and agree with that is, like I said, she's the biggest disappointment of President Trump's terms.
Well, and Justice Thomas said, quote, citizenship shouldn't be automatic just because a baby is born here. The Constitution requires more. The parents must truly be under U.S. authority, not just physically present, unquote.
And Bernie Moreno, since you guys brought him up, he has underscored that point. And in fact, he has called for an end to dual citizenship, that anybody wishing to come to the United States and become a citizen, a naturalized citizen, they must renounce and denounce their citizenship in their former country, just like he and his family did when they came here from Colombia. They're no longer citizens of Colombia. They're only American citizens. So, that's how strong he is about it. You must have a loyalty to this country and allegiance. That's what we say the pledge for, of allegiance to this country, especially if you want your child to have birthright citizenship.
Bob, just transitioning on to another big decision that came down. Bob, I have two wonderful little girls, one of which is a budding soccer superstar, and young girls. I'm talking under the age of 10. And the decision that came down, and it was, of course, it was 6-3, but actually, if you read it, even the dissent didn't disagree with the spirit of it. They just wanted more clarification about, the legal mumbo jumbo, that kind of stuff. That's how at least they worded their dissent. But sanity prevailed, Bob. Common sense prevailed. Girls won with this decision by the Supreme Court to uphold states' rights to ban boys, trans women from competing against our natural-born female girls, my little girl, and all the other people who are listening to the podcast who happen to have daughters. This was a victory for women's rights. You can't be a feminist and then say, well, I know he was a 15-year-old boy last year, but now it's a 16-year-old girl and he's going to race again. There's nothing feminist about that. But your thoughts on just common sense finally prevailing, and we can just put this stupid issue to bed, because everybody, even my liberal friends, were like, yeah, I don't think that's right. I don't think boys should be competing against girls. That was a good decision. That one they nailed totally correct.
Yeah, and how ironic is it that the three activist women on the court, three of the four, if
Women.
we're going to count Amy Coney Barrett, but those three are women and feminists. They were the ones who said, no, women should not have the right to compete only against themselves. They should be forced to compete against biological males who are physically superior and going to take all of their opportunities away from them. So that's just the irony and the sickening nature of it. To the point about the decision, again, as long as we're quoting justices here, Justice Thomas said it best: men and boys with gender dysphoria are not women or girls, even if they believe that they are. That's it. I mean, that at the end of the day, they can believe it. They can have some sort of a mental disorder, whether it be dysphoria or any other thing that might make them really wonder or think that they're not what they actually are. But it doesn't change the fact that they're not. Kind of like somebody with multiple personality disorder. Are they really 5 people? No, but they think they are in their heads. That doesn't mean we recognize them as such. And so the bottom line is what we have here is a correct decision, but I'm not done. And none of us should be, because all it did was refer this back to the states.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the Roe versus Wade decision, all it did was put it in the hands of the states. And what happened in a state like, I don't know, Ohio? We had a good law, not perfect, but a good law, the heartbeat bill. Anything after the heartbeat is detectable, you're not allowed to kill that child. And that went away because it was reverted back to the states, and suddenly we got a constitutional amendment. And here we are with pretty much abortion on demand all the way up to the moment of birth. So now all we've done, in this decision is let the states make the decision. And the girls in California, Colorado, New York, Massachusetts, Minnesota, all of the blue states are still going to allow males to participate in the girls' sports, in the girls' events. They're going to ignore this because all they've done is give it back to the states. And they're going to say, yep, we're the states, and this is what we're doing. So the fight is not over for, millions of girls. It is in the states that are reasonable and are going to follow that Supreme Court, ruling or its intent. But not every state is going to do that, since it's up to them.
Well, what's really frustrating to me is what I've been seeing on social media is the left is claiming, oh, transgender kids can't play in sports now. They've been banned. Well, first of all, that's not correct. They can still play in the sport that aligns on the team that aligns with their biological sex.
Correct.
Number one. Number two, the other thing they're claiming is, well, it's not that big of a deal. Only like 0.02% of kids identify as trans. And what I'd like to say to them is tell that to the young high school senior volleyball player in North Carolina who was smashed in the face with the ball by a biological male and it fractured her skull. She has permanent brain damage and is probably disabled for the rest of her life. Ended her sports career. She was a very good player. It only takes just one. And the main concept that I want to say to these people is, here's the deal. Your feelings do not take precedent over my rights or anybody else's rights. And I'm really tired of this BS that these people are throwing out there.
Well, I could not agree with you more. My daughter played volleyball in, junior high and in high school, and she was very, very good. She was a JO player, and they won a lot of tournaments and across the country. And I can tell you this: if there would have been and she was an outside hitter. And so she would get up and have a lot of those showdowns and blocks and so on and so forth. If she had faced a biological male on the other side who is spiking at a level that nobody on the other return side is able to react quickly enough to defend themselves, to actually play the ball and not get hit in the face, she would not have played. Just like so many teams at the college level actually refused to play against, San Jose State, that had a biological male player, because girls were getting injured. And so, it's literally would have denied my daughter the opportunity to pursue athletics in the way that she wanted. The soccer phenom you were just talking about right now, was that you, your daughter?
My 8-year-old daughter. She's a heck of a soccer player, really is. Imagine
a biological male tackling, doing a soccer tackle, against your daughter.
I might go to jail.
Up and tumble. Right? That's what you see. And so, it literally is denying girls the opportunity to compete and to play and to do so safely and fairly. if they don't do this. So I was thrilled to see what the court did, and I'm thrilled to read, like I said, Clarence Thomas's words in the in their decision. But like I said, it's not necessarily that we're all in the clear now. There are still going to be millions of girls who are going to be suffering under the rules that the state legislatures decide are right for their states.
Well, this weekend, Bob, America 250. Just is there anything? Go ahead and once again, your platform, talk about your show, and then give us your final thought as we head into this 250th birthday weekend of the United States of America.
Well, I'll say this. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to plug the show. The show is Strictly Speaking Unfiltered with Bob Frantz. It's on Rumble. That's the hub, although we do stream it out to YouTube and Facebook and to X every morning from 7 to 9 a.m. But the hub where we get all of the action with as far as, the live chat and people commenting and so forth, that's on Rumble. So I certainly welcome people to join us there. Just look for Strictly Speaking Unfiltered with Bob Frantz, or just look for Bob Frantz, Frantz, and you'll find it. To your question about 250, I'll tell you something. I was giving a speech down in Columbus Monday last, the 22nd. AFP and Concerned Veterans for America and the Labor Institute had a really fantastic event there with about 350, 400 real strong patriots. And I said then what I'll say now, just super briefly, and that is we have the benefit of hindsight, knowing what happened when some brave men and women yearning to be free and to breathe freely. We know it worked out. We know that George Washington became one of the most extraordinary military leaders as General Washington ever. We know that Thomas Jefferson wrote words that literally changed the world, led to this 250 years of freedom that we have been celebrating, and this experiment that we continue to improve upon every single year over the last 2.5 centuries. We look back and we are like, man, that was awesome. You know who didn't know it was going to work? They didn't. They didn't. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, every single one of them who signed the Declaration did not know that they were doing something that was going to work. They might as well have been signing their own death warrants, because the British did not take kindly to treason, and they were declaring themselves no longer British subjects. That's treason. And so they had courage that led to where we are right now. And the mission for us at 250 is to do the same thing for the next 250. We don't know every single step that we take right now, how it's going to impact the next generation or the one after that or the one after that. But we have to go forward with courage. We owe it to them. We owe it to every single one of them, like I said, who could have been signing their own death warrant, and it ended up becoming the greatest force for good in the history of mankind. And I firmly believe that is what the United States of America is. All of the empires, all of the civilizations that preceded us, there is nothing quite like. Now, are we perfect? No. In 250 years, we have had problems, we have had mistakes, we had the sin of slavery, but we have worked to do good more than any other nation or civilization, I think, in the history of man. We have corrected our errors. We continue to try to improve as well, to make things better for everyone around the globe to the extent that we can. And that's all because of, like I said, the steps taken by those who did not know what the future held. We don't either, but I can promise you this: if we don't push back against the threats we face right now to tear this country down, the socialist and communist takeover, specifically the Islamization of this country as well, if we're not careful, there will not be an America 500. There will not be another 250. There may not be another 50 as far as that goes. They may not get to the tricentennial of this country's founding. So that's our mission, is to go forward boldly, not knowing what the future is going to hold, but knowing that if we don't take, I'll close it with this. I won't rest easy in my grave. I will be tossing and turning for eternity if I let what was gifted to us get away and not gift it to my children and grandchildren after me. That's our task.
Very well said.
Absolutely
Very
well said.
Sir, Bob Frantz, thank you again for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's really nice to hear your words again down here. And I tell you, if you don't feel anything when you look at that flag this weekend, I don't know what to tell you other than the fact I would question whether or not you have a soul. That's about where I'm at.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. If just to follow that super quick, I question whether or not you should stay here. I did a video this afternoon. I do a little thing called Bob Frantz Road Rants, only because it rhymes and it's kind of neat. So I get in my truck, and I'll turn on my camera that's mounted, and I'll just go off on certain things. And today I went off on a survey that I heard only 27% of Democrats plan to fly that flag you just mentioned this Saturday on the 250th.
Disgusting.
Less than 20% of Democrats, less than 1 in 5, describe themselves as being proud to be Americans. And get this, 55%, a majority of Democrats said they wish they lived in another country.
Well, they
so
can.
I did a rant, right?
They
I did
can,
a rant
yeah.
today saying, what the living H are you still doing here then?
Yep.
Rather than destroying this country and turning it into a socialist hellhole, there are plenty of those around the globe. Go find an existing socialist hellhole and move in. That's what you ought to do. So if you're not flying that flag, I agree with you. I question whether or not you have a soul, but moreover, I question whether or not you should still be here.
Amen, brother.
Agreed.
Amen. God bless America.
Amen to that. So again, you can follow Bob on Rumble. He's on YouTube. Also, Straight Shot Politics on Facebook, on YouTube. Please like us, subscribe. The more people like us and subscribe, the more people we can reach and share our message.
This has been Straight Shot Politics.